What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out on YouTube every single week. Pretty simple show today. I'm only going to talk about two things before we get to the weekend look ahead. Both of them pretty big pieces of information, pretty big news items though, so I'm going to save one segment for each of them, starting with Christian Pulisic officially slash unofficially headed to AC Milan. Everything is essentially done except for the announcement. He is in Milan. You may have seen the videos going through his medical. He is there to officially be announced as an AC Milan player. The announcement just hasn't come quite yet. But this is the time where we can start talking about this. It should be, by the time maybe even you're seeing this video, he may be officially introduced as an AC Milan player. Before I get to the AC Milan side of this, I want to address a general narrative with Pulisic. Him struggling at Chelsea, him not getting consistent playing time at Chelsea, is just not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. I've mentioned this before, and I will say it again here. There are only a handful of players at a club like Chelsea who are lockdown starters. You're thinking N'Golo Kante when he was healthy a few years ago, a guy like Eden Hazard when he was at his best at Chelsea, a defender or two, Cesar Azpilicueta for the most part over the last decade or so. There are guys here or there that were clearly starters. But by and large, when you get to this level, whether it's Chelsea, whether it's Barcelona, whether it's Man City, doesn't matter. You just aren't guaranteed a spot in the starting lineup. And so if somebody goes on a tear, you might be doing just fine. You're not getting in. If you get injured, you don't get your spot back right away. And we've seen this with Pulisic. He had that tear during lockdown, and he stayed in the starting 11. And then he got hurt, and it's been difficult every time he gets hurt for him to break back into the starting lineup because there are no guaranteed spots there, especially on the wing. Look at what happened to Mason Mount. He was the best player on that team 2 seasons ago, and last season didn't go very well for him. It's not like this is specific to Pulisic. It is the reality of being a role player at one of the biggest clubs in the world. And so I bring this up to address what Landon Donovan said, that you have probably seen by now. He threw out the idea that Pulisic should come back to MLS. He mentioned the LA Galaxy and basically said they should just pay him whatever he can so that he knows he's playing heading into the 2026 World Cup. Not getting to play at Chelsea and not being able to cut it in Europe are two completely different things. That is not the conversation we need to be having about Christian Pulisic right now. This is not a talent issue. Maybe he's not quite good enough to be at a team that expects to be contending for a Premier League title and expects to be competing in the Champions League, as in trying to win the competition. That's fine. There aren't that many players in the world that are good enough to kind of carve out a spot for themselves at those kind of clubs, because there are only 5 to 10 of them in the world. There's just no reason to be super concerned about this right now. He needed to leave, and he is leaving. To me, that's the end of the Chelsea part of this story. On the AC Milan side, there is a clear role and a glaring need that he can address for this team, because it sounds like he's going to play as a number 10. I talked about this all season long. They lacked any kind of creativity outside of Rafael Leao. They just didn't have anything to offer if he wasn't the best player on the field or if he was injured. They need more creative players like Christian Pulisic. It's a really good fit from that standpoint. He needs an opportunity to play and to express himself and to have some freedom that you could argue he didn't have at Chelsea. And AC Milan need more players to make things happen, and more players with ideas. And Christian Pulisic has ideas. Again, this is not a talent issue. So I really like this fit. The next part. Let's just talk worst case scenario here and say whether it's injuries or he just doesn't end up really getting a spot in the starting lineup consistently and he finds himself wanting to play more regularly again in a year or two. There is still time to correct that and address that before the 2026 World Cup. This is a 24-year-old who was playing for Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League and playing real minutes for Borussia Dortmund as a teenager. He's going to figure this out and find a spot eventually. And in a worst case scenario, maybe that's Major League Soccer. If he just can't get the injuries under control and the AC Milan thing doesn't go well, and so now the clubs that he would be interested in playing in Europe don't necessarily want to take a chance on him, okay, then we can talk about MLS being an option. But we are so far from that happening. There was no reason for Pulisic to give up on this now and to buy into what Landon Donovan was saying. It just doesn't make sense at all to me. Go give it another shot at the highest level in Europe. At a team where you feel like you have a much better chance of really cementing yourself. At a team where you can see how you address something that they are looking for and you fit something that they want to fix in this transfer window. A team that is going to be trying to compete in the Champions League and qualify for the Champions League every season. Not expecting to win the competition. Obviously made the semifinals this season as more of a Cinderella underdog kind of thing. But this is still one of the top teams in Italy. It's not the top team. But this is, to me, where I always believed the sweet spot for Pulisic was. It's at your sort of second-tier Champions League clubs. Your Borussia Dortmunds, your AC Milans, your Inter Milans, your Marseilles, Atletico Madrid, those kind of teams where it's a really, really high level. You expect to be near the top of the table, maybe even competing for a league title. But you're not expecting to win the league and expecting to win the Champions League. It's one step down from where he was at Chelsea. That is where I think his sweet spot is. And AC Milan fit that perfectly. And playing in the Champions League and playing in European competition is really important at this moment in time in this transfer window, talking about these U.S. men's national team players with so many futures up in the air. Because I talked about this when the Weston McKennie loan to Leeds happened. At that point, you didn't have anybody from this U.S. men's national team playing a real role in the knockout stage of the Champions League. I know Pulisic was there, but Pulisic wasn't playing. Now you look at this, Pulisic's in a great position to be able to be a factor in the Champions League. Jordan Pifok's team qualified for the Champions League. Brendan Aronson is on loan at that team. That team has also been connected to Serginho Dest, Union Berlin. So that's a really good development. You got Pulisic settled. McKennie is the next guy, and also Tyler Adams, who has no business playing in the championship. I've said that before. But it is important to get at least some of these guys playing in European competitions and hopefully the Champions League. And at clubs where that is something that is a goal every season. So that they see the highest level that the sport has to offer. And 6 months ago, more like, yeah, I guess 6 is coming out of the World Cup, essentially. That just wasn't a thing based on the club situation with all these guys. And so it's getting better in that sense. And this was a big step because obviously Pulisic probably had the worst club situation out of anybody. Well, take that back. Serginho Dest had him because Dest was in the wilderness. He needs to figure that out too. But Pulisic is the guy, obviously the face of the team, the captain, all of those kind of things. So I'll end this where I started it with don't connect this too closely to Chelsea. It's two very different situations. I can't emphasize that part of it enough. There's no need to overreact about what struggling at Chelsea means for Christian Pulisic's future. Just like there's no need to for Mason Mount or any of the other guys who have gotten buried with all of these additions they've made. It didn't work at one particular club, and by the way, that club, Pulisic never got to play for the manager, or at least I don't think he ever played for him. Maybe briefly if I'm misremembering that. But he wasn't actually kind of integrated by the manager who bought him. Lampard did not seem to be a huge fan. He was manager twice. His relationship with Thomas Tuchel, that seemed to maybe be a positive, turned out to not be. He hasn't really had a manager that's willing to go to bat for him. That's part of this too. Actually going to a club that has a plan and wants you just that in and of itself is a huge step in the right direction. So there's really no larger commentary to take away from the Chelsea experience for Christian Pulisic. It didn't work. Some of that is on him, and specifically the injuries, and some of that is on Chelsea's lack of planning. Because they invested all this money in him and then never actually had a plan as to what that was going to look like and just continued to spend more money when he wasn't delivering the way they wanted to immediately. He can't control any of that. So I am very, very optimistic about this. I don't see the downside. That's really ultimately what my conclusion is. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, now if it's injuries, that's a conversation about can Pulisic stay healthy because that carries anywhere. But assuming, just talking on the field, if this doesn't work, then you got to change your approach the next time around, but there is still time to find somewhere where you can play consistently heading into 2026. And maybe at that point, it's time to reevaluate where you are in the overall soccer landscape. But not cracking into Chelsea's starting lineup is not a reason to reevaluate anything. There is nothing based on his performance on the field that suggests he is anything than the player that everybody believes he is and that he's shown to be. He was terrific during the Nations League for the U.S. That's still who he is. He just needs to find a spot to show that at the club level. And it wasn't working at Chelsea. He's got every opportunity to make it work at AC Milan. The risk here is very, very low. And if he didn't make this kind of move now, there's no guarantee he would get another chance to play at a club like AC Milan. Now, if it goes well, then maybe he gets another chance at Juventus or PSG or something like that. Barcelona, Real Madrid, whatever. But there was no reason to go too far down the totem pole when a club like AC Milan wants you. You got to bet on yourself. You got to believe in yourself. Talent-wise, he's a starter on this team. I firmly believe that. That's my taking out the U.S. men's national team part. Just watching AC Milan last season, to me, he's a starter. That number 10 spot is his. And if that's the case, this is a home run. And if it's not the case, it's still not the end of the world. I can't even think of a spot I would rather have Pulisic move to than this. To me, it is perfect. So we'll have to see what happens. Wait for the official introduction, the pictures, all of those kind of things. But Christian Pulisic in Milan, ready to join AC Milan for the next step of his career. I'm going to take my first break. When I come back, could promotion, relegation be coming to the U.S.? Interesting news being reported by The Athletic this week. I'm going to talk all about that and what it means after the break. You're watching the Touchline Talk Show. Don't go anywhere. And what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out every single week here on YouTube. Very interesting news out of the United Soccer League this week. The Athletic reporting that there's going to be a vote during this meeting, August 9th through the 11th, about the possibility of USL implementing promotion relegation. And with the Women's World Cup coming, Leagues Cup, I thought this was the perfect time to talk about it now, even though it hasn't happened. It seems like there's a lot of positive vibes and positive reaction to it. And so it does seem like we're trending in this direction. And when this happens early next month, it's going to be in the middle of the World Cup. Plenty of other things going on. There's not too much happening at this moment, so I wanted to talk about it now. And I may not revisit it on this show later. So I wanted to make sure I talked about it. The USL needs to find a way to distinguish itself and separate itself from MLS. And what I mean by that specifically is I don't see a world in which the USL is going to do what MLS does better than MLS. MLS has Messi. MLS has the Apple TV rights deal. I don't see a way in which USL can elevate itself to where it's comparable to MLS by basically just by sheer money and investment. I don't see that happening. So you've got to find a different way to distinguish yourself and to make the USL brand bigger and make it more competitive with MLS. What better way than promotion relegation? And it seems as though the plan, based on the Athletics reporting, is to get this to 3 divisions. So you have USL Championship, you have USL League One, and to add one somewhere probably in the middle of that. Which I'm a huge fan of because having 2 leagues with promotion relegation just isn't all that exciting. You're playing in one or you're playing in the other. You add a 3rd one in there, now we're talking. The biggest thing I love about this, and I just fundamentally support promotion relegation as an accountability measure, that teams should not be entitled to spots in leagues based on their finances. It's the same fundamental issue out of the many I have, but the one that irks me the most about the Super League proposal, and Pep Guardiola even talked about this idea that teams were just invited based on their brands and not based on their performance. It's a different situation, but the same idea with MLS. You don't have to be well run. You don't have to spend money well. You can just be bad and kind of disinterested and it doesn't matter. Promotion relegation, now it matters. And it also gives owners a reason to invest. If you are Stan Kroenke with the Colorado Rapids or any of the owners of the small market MLS teams, particularly ones that, and I know Colorado's had some success recently, but specifically ones that have been struggling. And you see what LAFC is doing, you see what Cincinnati's doing, the Sounders, of course, you can go down the list. What is your incentive if you know you can't spend the way that LAFC does? What is your incentive to spend a little bit more when it doesn't matter if you finish third to last or dead last, and so many teams get into the playoffs? Right? There are plenty of examples of smaller market teams. Right now it's the Union more than anybody else. You don't have to spend money to be successful in MLS. You just have to spend enough of it. But what is the incentive to go to that next level when you're not really trying to avoid the bottom, and you already feel like you have a chance if everything breaks right? And you know you're never going to outspend people. What is the incentive for an owner to open their pockets a little bit more? What you see in Europe with this tiered qualification system is what I'll call it. Whether that's promotion, the idea of if we invest a little bit more, that might be what gets us to the next division, or something like Brighton and Aston Villa or Arsenal, where we have a really good core. If we spend a little bit more money, that might cement us as a team that regularly qualifies for European competition. Or Arsenal, if we go get Declan Rice, that might actually make us Premier League champions based on what we did this season. None of that happens in MLS because of the playoff system and because of the lack of urgency in the league, because there's no relegation. There just isn't a lot of incentive to go to the next level because there's so much parity and everybody's so condensed. So now what you have, if USL goes through with this, is a situation where somebody who is an ambitious owner that wants to really spend money and wants to build something can go take a team from USL League One, for example, and spend that money with the goal of getting to the USL Championship and being the best team in the country outside of MLS, whatever that may end up meaning when this is all figured out and kind of turns into an actual product on the field, assuming promotion relegation is approved. It's not just about having the entity. It's about being able to make it better than where it is right now. That's the struggle with MLS. That's what promotion relegation gives you. It also opens up storytelling and marketing opportunities. Why do people care about Wrexham? Why is Wrexham probably the most popular soccer team in this country? It's because you had smart guys who understood what good entertainment is and a good product is, that were able to tell a compelling story because of promotion relegation primarily. And getting to connect with the Wrexham community and all of that. Every time I talk about Wrexham, I bring this up. MLS doesn't have that. In large part because of the lack of promotion relegation. And so as a result, US soccer doesn't have that. This is the opportunity to change it. If people are going to all of a sudden care about Wrexham, the logic says they should also care about whatever team in USL League One. We'll just go with, pick out an example and say Forward Madison. If you get a compelling celebrity owner who cares and is invested, why can't you do the same thing that Wrexham did from a publicity standpoint? And you can spend money so that you are in a better position than everybody else in the league. And then you get to the USL Championship and you're in position to compete right away, just like Wrexham are in League 2 next season. I don't buy this idea that it has something to do with it being in Europe. I buy the idea that it has to do with the drama, the entertainment, the storylines, and a lot of that is about promotion relegation. So I don't see how MLS can create something like Wrexham. But USL can bring that same idea to the US with whatever team it might be, whatever celebrity owner it might be. That's the other huge benefit here. It's going to make the league more competitive because it's going to force owners to be accountable and owners to spend. And going back to finding a way to distinguish yourself from MLS, that's how you win the marketing battle. MLS has really struggled in the marketing part. Messi is going to obviously really help with that. But there is a window and an opportunity for USL to kind of carve out its own niche within US soccer with promotion relegation, with the storytelling elements that provides. The opportunity for players to continue to elevate themselves. You're seeing some USL Championship guys now going to Europe. It's hard to move up the pyramid in US soccer because the leagues aren't connected, because it's just kind of awkward. You don't see it happen very often. This is an opportunity to kind of change that. You get a great team in League One, go up to the second division, go up to the USL Championship. And then the stars of those teams, maybe an MLS team grabs them, but more likely they get an opportunity to go to Europe. To me, this is a win for everybody. And if USL wants to continue to expand its footprint, the way to do it is promotion relegation. Just like MLS, when comparing MLS to Europe, comparing USL to MLS, you have got to embrace being different. Embrace what makes you as a league distinct. And you also have to obviously find what that is in order to then embrace it. And then you got to figure out how to market it. And that's where MLS has struggled. MLS has a unique product that is incredibly entertaining from a game delivery standpoint. It's just a matter of, can you get people to buy into it? Promotion relegation is going to really help with that. And that's how USL can set themselves apart and go, we are the promotion relegation league in the US. That can be their thing, because right now they don't have one. This is a home run. And if it forces MLS into promotion relegation, outstanding. I still don't see a world in which that happens, because those franchises are too valuable to allow for owners to allow them to be relegated. It's just the reality of the world that we're in. USL franchises, there should be more of a willingness to take the risk with promotion relegation because of what it can do financially. It is an investment in the long-term future of the league and the long-term future of these clubs. And I really do think it's going to lead to an opportunity for some very interesting investments and some interesting ownership that's going to get people talking about USL. Because you can't just go buy an MLS team. Right? We're talking ownership groups. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. But you can, hypothetically, as a celebrity, go buy a USL team and say, wouldn't it be fun to help this team go move up the pyramid and get to the USL Championship? And then all of a sudden, instead of all of these celebrities investing in European teams, maybe you get more of them to invest in USL. And that just continues to help everybody in the league and raise the league's value. This is a home run to me. We'll see if it actually happens. Again, August 9th through 11th are the dates when this vote is expected to take place. It could be in place as soon as next season. There are a lot of questions and things that haven't been sorted out yet. But this is the way forward, the way to build a sustainable model for USL. The growth has been terrific. I talked about this with Mike Watts in my latest edition of My Soccer Story. Be sure to check out that podcast episode, video, all that good stuff, because he is the voice of the USL. He talked about in that interview the growth that we have seen in this league. There's only one way to take it to the next level, I feel like, and to close the gap on MLS. And that's promotion relegation, and it sounds like that is the path USL is going to travel down, and I could not be more excited about it. That is all for this segment. I'm going to take one more break, and when I come back, the weekend look ahead, as always, setting the stage for what is coming up next in the world of soccer. You're watching the Touchline Talk Show. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the Touchline Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is time for the weekend look ahead. Pretty quick one today with NWSL on World Cup break. First thing, Gold Cup final on Sunday. As I am sitting here at 7:33 p.m. Eastern, on Wednesday night, we are about to start the semifinals, so we do not know who is playing in the Gold Cup final yet, but that will be Sunday. Could potentially have another USA-Mexico, a potential rematch, USA-Jamaica, all kinds of opportunities there. Should be a really good game. Then Saturday, MLS, 4 games I want to highlight, and this is your last weekend before Leagues Cup starts. So plenty of games tonight. This is a match day for MLS as well, so really busy Wednesday night. And then Saturday, finishing things off until after Leagues Cup. So this is your last MLS regular season games for a while here. Nashville at Cincinnati. Huge week in the Eastern Conference. Union are playing Nashville tonight, Wednesday, and then Nashville is going to Cincinnati on Saturday. Can Nashville find a way to take 4 points from these games and all of a sudden really start gaining some ground on FC Cincinnati? Can FC Cincinnati kind of make up for this little bit of a slump they've been in? That gap is closing a little bit. Can the Union get a string of results here, winning in Nashville, winning again on the weekend, having Nashville and Cincinnati both drop point. Can you get a combination that's really favorable? Because I still put the Union in the top of it. To me, those are the three teams in the East. And the Union are a little bit behind right now. Got to get Andre Blake back from the World Cup. Sorry, not the World Cup, the Gold Cup. They are an average Eastern Conference team that's the 6th, 7th best team in the East without him. I still think there's an argument they're the best team in the East with him. That's how valuable he is. That's the gap in the goalkeeping quality when he's not there. So these two games are going to have a huge impact on what the East looks like heading into Leagues Cup. The other game in the East, I want to mention DC United at New England Revolution. Revs obviously having a really good season so far, up there near the top of the conference. DC United sticking around the playoff line, trying to go from just inside the playoffs to can you continue to build and maybe even get home field advantage, avoid the play-in, things like that. Sporting Kansas City at Austin out west. Kansas City, it's just continuing to get better and better. They are officially back in the playoff hunt. Austin hasn't been spectacular, starting to pick it up a little bit as well. So these are two teams trying to climb up the West. And then finally, FC Dallas at Seattle. Seattle still in the mix near the top of the West. Can they keep this going? FC Dallas, can they get some momentum headed into Leagues Cup here? Try and make themselves a little bit safer in the playoffs. This is the time of the season where, and it's kind of strange because Leagues Cup is sort of right in the middle of the time where you really start seeing teams separate themselves. So these two games, these two match days are going to be huge to kind of set the stage for the sprint to the finish after we get done with Leagues Cup. So really looking forward to these two nights in MLS, and I'm looking forward to the Gold Cup final and semifinals, of course. That is all for the Touchline Talk Show tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.